Welcome back to the Belief Lab. I'm Dr. Wendi Zimmer, and today we're going to do things just a little bit different. So normally I record from my studio, so if you've joined me before, you'll notice my background looks a little different. But this week I'm coming to you from my living room, living room slash kitchen, because last Saturday my house was struck by lightning. And what started as this crazy loud crack and big boom of thunder within seconds turned into an electrical fire that filled my house with smoke. And luckily, truly by the grace of God, we are all safe. But it has shaken me this week as I've thought about just the blessings in my life, but also the implications around the event that's happened. So I apologize if my sound is off. We have kind of a big open area, so the noise might be reverberating a bit. You can see today's my daughter's birthday. You can see her birthday gifts in the back corner. There's some Halloween decorations. There's some other things. Welcome to my life. I'm so glad to have you here today. And I've spent a lot of time since Saturday just kind of processing what happened. And I realized something that I really want to share with y'all today. And this story isn't just a story about fire. Well, that was a piece of obviously what we've been dealing with since Saturday. It really took me back to being a story about belief, about what happens when the things you rely on, routines, plans, even your sense of safety, suddenly go up in smoke. I'm sitting here recording on my laptop. That is not my norm. So many of my routines and habits that I have put in place and that I teach others to put in place have completely been uprooted this week. And so today's episode isn't polished, it isn't planned, it's real. It's me coming to you from my heart. And it's for anyone who's had life strike out of nowhere and thought, how do I keep moving when everything feels on fire? Because yes, I have been dealing with a true lightning strike this week. But there are so many times in our life where that lightning strike is not literal, but it still causes chaos around us. And I think that's a really key piece for us to stop and give ourselves grace. And so this episode isn't about how to fix everything when it comes your way. What it is about, and what I want to talk about, is how to stay grounded when everything around you starts to feel unstable. When the things you have put into your life, when the things you rely on start to seem to unravel. And what do? How do you communicate, lead, and believe in yourself in the middle of all this chaos? And by no means am I done. We are just starting this process. And so today's episode is as much for me as it is for you, to remind me of how to communicate well, how to stay strong in the chaos. So today I want to talk about three things. First is the truth about control, what we actually have power over, because even the things we think we have power over, we don't always. The second thing is how to communicate calm when fear is loud. When fear is loud. And then the third is why every disruption can become a belief reset if we allow it to be. If we allow it to be. So let's get started. If you're already thinking, oh my gosh, this is perfect time for this message. I didn't have a true literal storm, but there's a lot of storm going around me in my life. Or if you know of others, please subscribe to my channel. Please share this with others around you, because we're all going to face times in our lives where we struggle, where we don't know how to communicate, where we don't know how to believe in those times of chaos. And so please consider sharing this as we move forward. So as I started really thinking about Saturday and reflecting on and unpacking what had happened, it really brought me back to what can we control? What can I control? Because we don't get to choose when lightning hits, whether literally or figuratively. But we do get to tell the story that comes from it. That comes from it. So your story may look like, in that first moment when something happened, when you're dealing with something. So in my experience, the 3 a.m. smoke alarms start going off. We heard, obviously, the lightning strike shook the house a little bit. There's massive thunder. The smoke alarms start going off. We come out, because my smoke alarms often malfunction. So I expected to come out, rip the same one off the wall. That's always a problem. Pull out the battery and go back to sleep. And when we came out, there was sheetrock all over the floor in the kitchen, actually right over here, kind of where I'm sitting. And I was like, what? Did a tree fall in the house? Like, how in the world? What is happening? Because again, it's 3 a.m. and I'm not completely coherent at that time in the morning. And my husband went outside to get the ladder to get the smoke alarm off the wall. We were trying to take care of it before my daughter woke up. And as I started looking around, because the power was out and I had a flashlight, I was like, something seems odd. And in that first moment, just kind of the smell and the sound, and we didn't realize yet that the house was filling with smoke, my brain went into overdrive. And then when my husband went upstairs and he's like, oh my gosh, that smoke, call 911. We have to get out of the house. And by that point, my daughter had woken up. We got our stuff, got out of the house, and went across the street to the neighbors. And my fight or flight response was almost instantaneous. Almost instantaneous. It was, how can I control this chaos? And how can I make this better? Because I wanted to make sure I had shoes, and I wanted to make sure, I'm in my pajamas and I need my daughter's EpiPen and all the things that we were told not to do when we were in a fire. We should just get out of the house. And I was truly, like I mentioned, in this fight or flight response. And as we got across the street, and it's pouring down rain, as we got across the street, and I have talked to the amazing emergency operators on 911, and we can hear the sirens coming, so the very kind woman lets me get off the phone. I'm standing on the porch at my neighbor's house, just staring across the street at mine. And I thought, this could be so much worse. This could be so much worse. I'm not watching my house go up in flames. I don't really know what's going on inside, but I'm not just watching this inferno, which I know so many people have to go through. And I have a dry place to stand, and I have a warm place to go. I could have gone into the house at any point, and I did. And so really stopping to think about, okay, at this point, the belief that I have around what's going on around me is the only thing I can control. That is my lifeline. I needed to be strong for my daughter, but I also needed to be strong for myself and believe that everything was going to be okay, whatever that looked like. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity. Y'all heard me talk about that before. I think that's a terrible concept. I'm not finding good where there is no good. But recognizing that I could not believe when I could not control when the firefighters got there. I could not control what was happening inside my house. But I could control my response. I could control my response. Because when life strikes, whether it's truly lightning or loss or unexpected change, our nervous system, our natural response is to flood that nervous system with cortisol. Because that cortisol kind of, again, takes you into that how do I survive kind of aspect. And then your brain's amygdala takes over and it hijacks any sort of reasoning that you had, and it amplifies any fear that you had. Now, in that moment, when smoke is filling my house, honestly, I was in such shock. I don't even know how much fear there was, because it was just like, what is going on? How could this possibly be happening? How could lightning have struck my house? This doesn't happen to me, right? This happens to other people. These kinds of things don't happen to you. And this is why people often panic and shut down. Because when your amygdala takes over, your response is, okay, it doesn't matter what makes sense. It doesn't happen what's reasonable. This is the action that I'm going to take. It's biology. It's not a weakness. And I can tell you, my first sign of that is when I was on the phone with the 911 operator, and she's like, are there any animals in the house? And I was like, oh, the dogs are outside, but oh, we have 2 guinea pigs. And I literally said, would it make it easier if I go inside and get them? And then I went, oh wait, no, I know you're not supposed to go back in the house. And the sweet little 911 operator, she goes, well, thank you for answering your own question. And I know better, right? You know not to go back inside of a house that is potentially on fire. But again, that reasoning just goes out the window and it amplifies your fear. And this is completely normal. Harvard Medical School did a study a couple of years ago, and what they found is that stress reactivity, that activation, that amygdala piece in your brain, takes less than 3 seconds. Less than 3 seconds for your amygdala to trigger a stress response. That's it, 3 seconds. And so as, again, my house is filling with smoke and there's sheetrock on the floor and I'm trying to get my daughter out the door, less than 3 seconds for it to be like overwhelmed and I can't control any of this and I don't know what to do in this situation. And that's okay. But that's where belief-based reframing can calm your prefrontal cortex in under 60 seconds. Under 60 seconds. The key is to reframe in a narrative way. So what you tell yourself in the aftermath determines how you recover. In the moment, no recovery. It's truly just fight or flight. It's truly just survival. But after you get past that initial 3 seconds, after the stress builds up, after you get yourself to a safe situation or you get yourself out of the immediate danger, whether that's physical harm, emotional harm, mental harm, whatever component you're dealing with, whatever chaos and trauma or disaster you're dealing with, once you get yourself out of that initial fight or flight, the recovery is what you can control. You cannot control the situation. You cannot control what's happening to you, but you can control the aftermath. You can control what happens to you. And one way to do that, and one thing that I did as the day progressed, and I knew we were safe. Specifically, I knew my daughter was safe. I knew the guinea pigs were safe. I knew everything was going to be okay in that moment. Again, my house did not burn to the ground. I gave myself time to reflect. And specifically, I asked 3 questions. And these are 3 questions that I hope you find helpful. The first is what just happened. Really name what was going on. Now, it helps that in my situation, we were calling insurance adjusters and we were calling electricians and we were calling the people come in that clean up all the fire damage and all the things. So we were having to tell the story over and over again to all kinds of people, to neighbors, to family. But naming the reality, what happened, not minimizing it, not pretending like it didn't happen, not having these moments of, I'm going to pretend like I'm strong because it's going to be okay, but truly just giving the facts. Asking yourself, okay, what just happened? What really just happened? The second question that I found helpful is asking myself, what can I control right now? Narrowing my focus. I could not control what was happening inside my house. I could not control whether the electrician was coming that morning or the next day or the day after. I could not control so many aspects of what was going on around me, which honestly is most days in our lives, let's be real. But I could not control that aspect. What I could control were the things happening in my family. I fed my family breakfast. I went and after the fire was put out, we were told that we would have to wash every single thing in the house. Every single piece of clothing, every single towel, every single dish, pot, spoon, fork. That's honestly what I've spent most of my time doing this week, washing every single thing. But side note, how blessed am I that we have clothes? I could be dealing with a complete and utter disaster. And at Target, buying all the things. So what could I control? I came back to the house. And we weren't sure if we were going to be able to go back into the house when electricity was going to be turned on. So we didn't know where we would be spending the night, Saturday night. So I went into the house. I got clothes for the next couple of days. I took them back to my neighbor's house. Again, thank you so very much to my neighbors. They're incredible. I washed clothes. So I fed my family. I washed clothes. My daughter was exhausted. I put her on the couch. She fell asleep. Control what you can control and give yourself grace to realize that that's enough. That's enough. I don't need to get out my laptop and start emailing the world. I don't need to grade papers. I don't need to all the things that started spiraling in my head of, oh, we're supposed to do this. I was supposed to go to Houston that day and give a keynote speech to a conference. So I did text at about 4 a.m. I texted the conference organizer and told her I would not be there. So that was a necessity. But I didn't stress about the conference I was missing. Control what you can control and give yourself grace to realize that if, it's the same thing we've heard forever. If all you have is 30% to give and you give 30%, then you've given 100%. So you can't fix it all. You can't do all the things. Name what just happened and then ask yourself, what can I control right now? And do that. And also know your personality. I don't sit still. I do not sit still well. So I needed to give myself things to do so that I felt like I had some control. And that's completely okay. The third question that I asked myself that I found incredibly helpful is, what story am I choosing to tell about this? Am I going to focus on, well, this is so unfair. Why did this happen to me? What, could I have done differently? This must be my fault. That is old me. That's what old me would have done. If I had done this, if I had somehow known that pipe, some exhaust pipe or something, those of you that know more than I do, that's what the lightning hit. If I had known that, would I have done something different? Would I have made sure more doors were closed in the house? Would I have made sure? I don't know, right? I don't know. And I've told you before how much I hate the word should, because it pulls you in this deep sense of shame and regret. So again, when I asked that third question, what story am I choosing to tell about this? I was not in the middle of all the chaos. The firefighters were gone. Everything was quiet. The sun had started to come up. The rain had let up. We could get a better look at what was going on. So it's not immediate, but giving yourself permission to say, okay, now what is the story I want to tell about this? And new me wants to lean into belief, wants to lean into my faith in God and say, thank you, Lord, for protecting my family during this time. Thank you for smoke alarms at work. Thank you for people who have come out and offered to help. Thank you for my community. Thank you for my friends and family. Thank you for the resources that I have available to me, because it matters, And so by asking myself, what story do I want to tell? I gave myself permission to process it the way I needed to. And it wasn't an immediate. It wasn't like, yay, this is so great. And it's still not great. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, like, yay, I'm really glad this happened to me. But there are a lot of positives that are going to come out of this negative event in my life. So recognizing that. So those are the three questions. What just happened? What can I control right now? And what story am I choosing to tell? Because when you do that, things like this is hard becomes, this is teaching me how strong I am. This is teaching me what I'm capable of. Or I can't believe this happened becomes, I can't believe I'm still standing. I can't believe my house didn't burn down. I can't believe that, we are blessed. We have 2 air conditioning units. It's a long story. And the one that works is the one attached to our bedrooms, so we can sleep in our house. So shifting that mindset, shifting the narrative. Because you can't control the lightning. Again, literal or figurative. But you can control the light. You can control the conversation, the message that you have around it. And then once you reclaim your story, once I reclaimed my story, what I could control, what that day was going to look like. And guys, I should reiterate that I'm just talking about Saturday. Sunday was a different conversation, but I was talking about Saturday and the immediate kind of needs, the immediate emergency. What could I control right now? And then once I reclaimed that story of how I wanted to see what was going on, what I could control, the power that I had, the next challenge for me and for all of us that go through any sort of situation like this is how to communicate. Because people look to you when things go wrong. People look to you to guide and to lead, especially if you have children. If you have children, they are looking to you to see how you handle it. So the second piece I want to talk about today is, how do you communicate calm when fear is loud? Because when chaos shows up, whether it's chaos around you, internal chaos, when that chaos shows up, we don't need to have all the answers. And to be honest, people don't need you to have all the answers. Many times, they just need to borrow your calm. My daughter needed to see that I was okay so that she knew she was okay. And at this point, my husband's out with the neighbors and the firefighters are gone, and who are amazing human beings, by the way. You've never had, when so many people show up to your house, you sit there and you look and you think, all of these men and women, it's 3 a.m, all these men and women are sacrificing to make sure I'm okay, to make sure we're okay. They could be home in bed. And yes, I know it's their job. I totally know it's their job. But there's something so comforting when people come in that are experts in that area, that they can help you in areas that you cannot. And you cannot. So my husband and the neighbor are walking around and they're assessing damage, and the firefighters at that point have let them go into the house. And my daughter's looking to me. My daughter's looking to me because she knows Dad's taking care of that side. And in moments of crisis, our words carry more weight than we actually realize. And our words aren't just, obviously the verbal pieces that come out of our mouth, but it's also our nonverbal communication. Right? It's how we carry ourselves, the look on our face, those moments when we don't come across as our best. And it's okay to cry. It's okay. I had many conversations with my daughter. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have questions. All of these things are completely normal and natural. And when other people see us, having normal behaviors and emotions that should be had in that situation, they see us as human, not as this impossible kind of level that they don't see how they could ever possibly achieve. We are real and we are human. And then when we do speak, our tone, our pacing, our breathing all communicate whether we feel safe or whether we are afraid. That's what it communicates. There's actually quite a bit of research on the neuroscience of communication when you're under pressure. And what it tells you is, first, that the human brain has mirror neurons that sync with the emotions of others. And we've all noticed it. Like when you're with a group of your friends and they're getting excited about something, like you get excited with them. Whether you were at the event or you even know what they're talking about, you get excited with them because it's contagious. Or when you're with someone and they're talking about something that happened to them or something in their lives that was sad or made them angry, we also feel that way. We have empathy for the other person because, again, we have those mirror neurons that sync with the emotions of others. So when you speak from panic, you spread panic. When you breathe slowly and you speak with grounded rhythm, others' nervous systems begin to mirror your calm, begin to feel what you feel. And again, I'm not saying that you have to be the strong one and not fall apart. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have moments where you're like, I don't know what to do. I've had over the last, today is Thursday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Today is day 6. Over the last 6 days, I have cried. I have laughed. I have panicked. I have completely forgotten things that, in my mind, I have absolutely no recollection that I said or did. At one point, my husband ran into town to get, I don't remember what, and he's like, what do we need? And I said, can you get some biscuits? Because Logan's going to want breakfast in the morning. We don't have any biscuits. And he's like, absolutely. And then he gets back and he opens the fridge and he's like, hey, there's biscuits in here. And I'm like, oh, okay. Little things, little stupid things that don't matter. But again, giving yourself grace to recognize that there's going to be moments where you're like, I have no idea. I can't even remember. My stress and my anxiety are high, and all that is okay. But then recognizing, okay, what can I control here? What can I control? Being in that constant state of stress and anxiety is not good for you. It's not good for anyone else. So taking a moment and go, okay, let me really ground myself, figure out where I am, and then figure out what to do next. Because you will inspire the people around you to do the same. MIT Human Dynamics Lab did research a couple of years ago. And what they found is that tone and pacing account for 87% of how others interpret emotional safety. 87%. So when we're talking really fast, or we're moving our hands a lot, which I do, sorry about that. If you're watching me on YouTube, you have seen me. My students all the time, we have conversations about my body language in different situations. But the speed and the tone at which you speak account for 87%. And think about it. We know this. If you've ever been around someone that their voice just calms you. I had a professor years ago that I would just love listening to her speak because she had one of those voices that just calmed you, no matter what we were talking about. And I miss her. I miss her as a person anyway, but I miss the calm in her voice. And I don't have that voice. Sorry, y'all. But it's that emotional safety. And then in 2019, UC Berkeley also did a study. And what they found is that leaders who communicated reassurance rather than control during a crisis were 2.4 times more effective at reducing anxiety in teams. So it's not even, hey, I need to be the person that knows all the answers, or I need to be the person that's solving all the problems, or I need to be the person that appears to be in control all the time. That's not what my daughter needed. My daughter didn't need me to be like, okay, we're going to this, and we're going to this, and we're going to this, and we're going to this. There was pieces of that. It's also my personality, so she expects that from me. But more so than that, she needed me to reassure her that we were safe, that we were okay. She needed me to have conversations around, look, the electrician's here. That's fantastic. He's going to figure out why our power's not working. We have clothes. Let me go wash these clothes. What would you like for me to get for you from your closet? Can I wash your blanket? Those kinds of things. Not control, but emotional safety, because that makes a massive, massive difference. So things you can do in the moment: slow your breathing, slow your words. Okay, allow your voice to set the pace for people in the room. Even if you just pause for a second, it signals stability. It signals stability. And again, I'm not saying that you have to be the strong one and you have to take all of the burden on yourself. You don't. You can have moments when you break down. You can have moments where you don't know what to do. You can have moments where you look around and you're like, I don't know. I don't know the next step. But it's following up with, but I know we're going to make it from here. Or some other comment that reassures people that it's going to be okay. That it's going to be okay. Because when you use that grounding language, it replaces that everything's out of control thoughts and ideas with, here's what we know right now. Here's what we can control right now. And it helps ground everybody in the situation. Because it allows us to name our emotions. It allows us to really assess where we are and what's going on. When you say things like, this is scary, or I'm afraid, or I don't know what to do, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And as I mentioned before, then people see you as human. They see that you too struggle and you go through things and you come out the other end, and it may take you a while, and that's okay. But when you name fear, you shrink its power. And that is huge. So when our fire happened, we had to communicate with family, with emergency responders, with neighbors around us. And, my tone in that moment mattered. I was talking to the lady at 911. And obviously I'm like, lightning just hit my house. Smoke is filling up my house. This, and this. But I had to be calm enough to be able to hear the questions she was asking me, to ground myself and focus and be like, what matters right now? What matters right now is communicating to this lady on the phone so that she can get me help. Not running in chaos, not spiraling out of control, not having 8-side conversations, but focusing on what mattered most. And at that moment, like I said, my husband had my daughter and they were out of the house. What mattered most was for me, control what I can control, being able to calmly communicate to the lady on the phone. And in that moment, my tone probably mattered more than my words, because she could tell that we were okay. She could focus her attention on getting the firefighters to the house and not being like, ma'am, calm down, ma'am, calm down. I need to talk to you. I need to understand. I don't know what's going on. She could focus on what needed to be done and less on me. I was not the emergency at that moment. My house was. And I remember thinking after I got off the phone with her that believing in myself, believing in the situation, believing in my ability to communicate what I need doesn't sound perfect. But it was presence, me being present in that moment. And yes, this is a very extreme example, but there's so many times in my life where it was like, okay, I need to be present to figure out what was going on, to name my reality, to figure out what I can control. You know, those questions that I mentioned earlier. It's not going to be perfect. I didn't communicate perfectly with the lady on the 911 call. I didn't communicate perfectly with my neighbors or my friends. I didn't communicate perfectly with the very wonderful event organizer at the event in Houston I was supposed to speak at. My email was coherent, but very short and to the point, which is not like me. I'm normally like, hi, how are you? I hope you're having a good day. That was not my message. It was not perfect, but I was present. I was assessing what needed to happen. And I could do that because, again, I had focused on what I could control, what really mattered in that moment. Because my family was taken care of, I could focus on what I could control. Because in crisis, calm can become our credibility. Being seen as someone who, okay, I can go talk to this individual. I can assess what's going on. They're not irate or running around like crazy or out of control. Because that's a whole other challenge for everyone, us included. And then once the fire is out, again, literally or metaphorically in this situation, depending upon the chaos in our lives, there is a quiet moment that follows. And that's my third point. Right now, we are far from done. We do have electricity. We got internet back. So all that is fantastic. There are still parts of my house that do not have power. One being my bathroom vanity. This side of the house, if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm pointing to my left. The whole side of the house. Much of it does not have power. And there's burn marks in many, many, many places all over the house. There's going to be a lot of work. The insurance adjuster, he was on the roof a couple days ago, and he even said, you know, if our neighbors had a camera, we should go back and look at it, because the amount of burns that follow our roof line, he's like, I bet it was literally like the whole roof line lit up, like the lightning just followed all the way around. So we have a long way to go. Just in washing clothes, a long way to go. It is making me stop and be like, okay, do I really need this? Is it worth, I'm washing everything, but is this worth hanging back up? Or is it time to donate whatever this shirt is? So we are purging. It's a great time to purge. Plus things are ruined that we just have to throw away. But it's a great time to purge and recognize we don't need all this stuff. What can I clean and give away to others? But we're in that quiet moment that follows chaos. And there will be more tears. And there will be more days where I'm just like, I can't miss more work. Sorry, now my dogs are barking. I can't miss more work. My husband can't miss more work. We can't have, more people in this house. So there's definitely more hard work coming. But that's when belief becomes rebuilding. So my point number 3 is, how do we turn disruption into a belief reset? Into a time to think about, okay, how can I communicate my belief differently? How can I believe in myself differently? Because sometimes things truly change, in this situation, burn down, because they no longer fit. they no longer fit. They don't fit the life we're in. They don't fit the scenario we're in. So we can rebuild what's meant to last. When we lose something, stability, plan, habits, electricity, whatever that looks like, when we lose something, our brain wants to rush back to normal. How do we get things back to normal, our new normal? Remember during COVID, we talked about new normal all the time. How do we get back to normal as fast as possible? But belief invites us to pause, reflect, and really rebuild intentionality. There was research specifically on post-traumatic growth that was done recently by a psychologist named Dr. Richard Tedeschi. And what he found was that people who engage in meaning making after adversity report greater resilience, empathy, and purpose than before. Greater resilience, empathy, and purpose than before, because they're working to create meaning out of what happened. Not to blame, not to make good out of bad, but to create meaning. And neuroscience research, specifically looking at habit disruption, tells us that unexpected change temporarily opens a neuroplastic window in our brain. And it's a rare chance to rewrite patterns of thought and behavior because it disrupts our norm. It disrupts all the things that we do without thinking. And while habits are phenomenal, I love habits, I teach habits, I have tons of habits in my life. Sometimes we need to stop and look at our habits and see which ones are no longer serving us well. So when you have that habit disruption, it's a great time for you to stop and go, okay, what habits do I want to keep in my life and what habits do I need to change? So there's a couple of strategies you can take away from this. First, you can find the lesson in what you're learning. So I like to journal specifically around the question, what did this teach me about control, gratitude, and belief? Maybe it taught me nothing. And I promise you the lessons that I'm learning from this experience that I'm in right now are not done. There will continually be lessons around control, around gratitude, and around belief. And I've been doing this for years. So it is easier for me to reflect on those three concepts. If this is relatively new for you, you may be like, I have no idea what this teaches me about control, gratitude, or belief. Or you feel dumb saying, well, I'm grateful for A, B, and C, not really. But the more you practice, the more you can learn about yourself and what really matters to you. And then communicate that reflection. So share your story. I will continue to share this story with you, with the people around me. Part of it's because I have made it my mission in life for y'all to learn from my mistakes and not have to go through what I've done, or at least go through it differently and stronger and from a place of power instead of a place of fear and stress and anxiety. And so learning from experiences and learning how you can go through something like your house catching on fire and come out stronger in the end. Because when you communicate through reflection, you reinforce that growth for yourself and then you model it for others. You model it for others. So as I've been telling this story to people over the last week, it always comes up with, oh, how are you? How's your week? And I used to just say, oh, I'm fine. I spent my whole life telling people I'm fine. I'm fine. It's a good week. How are you? Regardless of what's going on around me. But what I realize is I do people a disservice when I do that. Because I don't allow them to see my weaknesses. I don't allow them to see that it's okay to not have things all together. My students, my colleagues, my friends, it's good for us to see each other struggle and celebrate our successes and grieve together because it builds connections and it makes us stronger. It makes us stronger. So I challenged myself this week, and I didn't just walk around going, oh my gosh, my house caught on fire, oh my gosh, my house caught on fire, because I don't want that attention. But when people did ask me, how are you? What's going on? Then I tell them. And of course, everyone's first thing is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I used to say, oh, no, it's totally fine, it's okay. And now that's not my response. Now it's my default. I have to be careful because that's my default. Oh no, I'm fine, we're good. But now I say thank you. It's been rough. and surreal and crazy. But we are so blessed. God is so good. And then I walk through the things that are going well, and then the things that are still a challenge. They're still a challenge. Because it helps other people. And it's been interesting this week as I've done that. Almost in every situation, the person I'm talking to is like, oh my gosh, I too am going through challenges. And it turns into conversations because it gives those people permission. When I share my challenges and my weaknesses and show that I don't have it all together, in many cases it gives them power and autonomy to show that they don't have it all together, and it's okay. It's okay. It's okay for us to be real and human. And too often we think we can't show our weaknesses because it'll seem like we're not as smart as we come across, or we're not good enough or strong enough, or pick all the things you've heard me say many, many times. But when one person admits that they have weaknesses and challenges and struggles that they overcome, it opens up a community that can rely on one another, that can be real and honest with one another. And the outcome of that is so much stronger and more positive for the organization than if we all just acted like we had it together. So use this disruption to edit your priorities. What really, really matters? What really matters? I spent plenty of time at home this week. Now, part of it's because my daughter also had strep. Y'all, when it rains, it pours. But also because, what are my priorities? Yes, I could be back in the office every minute. Yes, I could be working late into the night. Yes, I could be getting up crazy earlier than I do. I get up early anyway, but crazy early to do more, to try to catch up. Or I can spend more time loving on my daughter, because this has been a lot for her. And it's her birthday. That's another time. When I told you I've cried, that's when you're like, control what you can control. I can't control the fact that this happened on the week of my daughter's birthday and Halloween, and now she has strep, but she doesn't anymore. She's feeling great. She's back at school. But I can't control those things. But I can control when I sit down and hold her, or don't do any work, because what's more important is making sure she is seen and heard and loved on, which I do anyway, don't get me wrong. But I've just amped it up a little bit this week. And you know what? It's largely for her, but it's for me too. It's for me too. Because when I look around and I look upstairs at the burned walls and look around at all the scorch marks all over the house, and yes, I do have moments of, oh my gosh, it could be so much worse. It could be so very much worse, and it could. But if I'm not careful, I can look around and think, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. And it's only going to get worse from here. And I have those moments, and then I stop. And I back up, and I think about what I can control. And I don't let myself stay there too long, because I know it's not good for me. I can't control what happened to my house. I can't control what happens to me today. I can't control largely most of the things that go on in my life. But I can control how I respond to them. And I obviously have some influence over the things that I do that impact what's going to happen to me tomorrow. I can control what's going to happen in some ways to me tomorrow by the actions that I do today, by the actions that I take today. So even with the things I can't control, I can control the story. I can control the story I tell myself. I can control the story I tell others. And I can communicate calm when my fear is loud. And I can tell my brain that I'm okay. I'm okay. We don't need fight or flight. We don't need fear. Because I'm going to name what has happened. I'm going to focus on what I can control. And every disruption can become a belief reset if I let it. Refocus on my priorities. Refocus on how I want to handle this situation. Giving myself grace. You know, this week really reminded me that belief isn't built in comfort. It's easy to believe in yourself when everything's going the way you want it to. But when it's not, we talk a lot about get outside your comfort zone. But a lot of times when you say get outside your comfort zone, it's something people are choosing. You have control over whether you get outside your comfort zone or not. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes things happen to you that get you outside your comfort zone and you have no input whatsoever. But belief isn't built in comfort. It's proven in chaos. I will look back on this event and see myself as strong and powerful, and that I had agency over my reactions. And I allowed myself to cry when I needed to cry, and I allowed myself to get angry when I needed to get angry, and I allowed myself to celebrate when I needed to celebrate. And I was the person that I wanted to be, and I showed up as that person. So I'm sitting here in my living room. I turned off the fans. We have big exhaust fans that are getting out the smell, because there's no way you would have been able to hear me. The smell of smoke is still lingering, especially if I go upstairs. But my belief feels stronger than ever. Stronger than ever. I'm proud of myself. And you, please be proud of yourself too when you go through things that are challenging and difficult. Too often in life, we just gloss over the things we do well. We just gloss over those moments where it's like, well, I handled a challenging situation, I handled a difficult situation, I'm on to the next one. But instead, we need to stop and celebrate ourselves. And when we were strong and when we controlled what we could control. Because belief doesn't mean nothing bad ever happened. It means you still choose to trust your strength when it does. When it does. So this week, if life hits you with something unexpected, pause before you panic. Ask yourself, what story do I want to tell about this moment one day? How do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to show up for others? How can I be powerful for myself and not powerless? And then choose to believe something better. If this episode reminded you that belief isn't about perfection, it's about presence, share it with someone who's facing their own storm right now. There's a great quote that I love. It's from an unknown source. And it basically, there's a couple different versions, but the version I like says something along the lines of, a soldier was walking through a really difficult situation, was walking through a storm. And in some cases, and the devil leaned over and says, you can't handle the storm. And the soldier said, I am the storm. And as this was all happening Saturday morning, I thought, I am the storm. I am choosing to be the storm in this situation. And I will continue to be the storm because I can handle the storm around me. The more I believe in myself, the more I communicate that belief and communicate with calm in the chaos, then I am the storm. And I'd much rather be the storm than to have the storm shake and break me. So, with all the challenges that you have this week, celebrate you, celebrate the amazing things that you do. Subscribe to this channel, leave a review, and join me next week in the Belief Lab, where we keep proving that belief is the difference between breaking down and breaking through. And as you leave here today, remember that lightning, literally or figuratively, doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it illuminates what's already strong. And you are strong, and I know that because you invested in yourself today. Well done.